Hello, everybody. Welcome to Connecting with Jennifer Filzen. Today we have Ken Edmonds, and it's so fun because I've been meeting so many people through different podcasts, and I was on his podcast recently, and he was so cool. I had to bring him on here so you guys get to know him as well. Ken is amazing, and you'll find out why, but pretty much he comes from the printing background. He has a rich history in printers. And because Renee, of course, has the background in printing, I saw them having a great discussion of old style printers, laser printers, lithography, and all kinds of things. And so you guys are truly part of that tribe. And then he also has a really cool channel about traveling in a wheelchair. And so he has some great videos about Alaska and other travel destinations. So welcome, Ken. Woo!
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
It's fun. It's just meant to be a blast, connecting with people. It was all born out of COVID, right? We couldn't see each other in person, but now with teleconferencing and all these wonderful things, we can still be social and get to know people. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what makes you special and unique.
Oh, I'm probably three quarters crazy. Uh, I can't stop starting businesses. So it's just one of those things. I am the very definition of a multipreneur and a serial multipreneur because I start a business and then I want to go, well, let's add something to this, or let's make another business. So Jennifer mentioned that I have a YouTube channel on travel. I am also a travel agent. I don't sell a lot of travel, but I'm a travel agent because it helps me get on ships and go places and see things. So I enjoy that. But I also have a business channel. And so I create a business podcast. I have a business YouTube channel. I teach service management for the copier industry. I'm working right now with a partner to build out a course to help dealers in the copier business modify the way they do business and to try to introduce a kind of a new concept and a new way that's better for the customer and better for the dealer. So I have just a few irons in the fire.
Well, it sounds like you're passionate about everything that you're doing, which is, I'm like you. I can't help it. I love to create new things, try new adventures, because it's how you learn and you grow, right?
Exactly. And it's interesting because both of the things that I do, and I would say probably equally passionate about both of them. When I retired as a copier service or a district service manager, actually, which was basically a role with the manufacturer that supported copier dealers and helped them solve problems they couldn't solve. I got started into down that road and said, they walk up to service managers and they go to find their best technician and say, "Congratulations, you're the service manager." And they turn around and walk away, and that was the end of his training. And then they wonder why he doesn't do good. And I saw, it broke my heart sometimes to see technicians that had been very good and very happy, and their lives were basically ruined because they got promoted into a job that they didn't get trained for, and they had no experience, and they just didn't have the tools. And so I decided that when I retired, I was going to start this business to make training available and then really help them be able to not only survive but to thrive.
Right. Right. And it is interesting. A lot of business owners, a lot of people when they retire, they've had all this wealth of experience, and to turn it into a coaching aspect is a wonderful thing because you have all this knowledge and expertise to share. And if you can help people grow and stop from breaking their nose, doing all the silly mistakes, isn't that great?
Oh, I love it, and it's interesting. It's very satisfying because one of the things I do is I do surveys, right after they come out of class. But then a lot of times I'll go and talk to their owners or their managers, and I'll survey them, 6 months or a year down the road, and it's really gratifying to get back feedback that's saying that the things that they learned in class they're using on a regular basis. It's helping them. And that's what this business is about. I mean, obviously I'm in it to make a living, but as much as anything else, it's to provide help to people that really need it.
Yeah. So what are you teaching them about? Are you doing sales? Are you teaching them about processes, systems, finance? What aspects are you helping them with?
Well, that's an interesting thing because the first 2/3 of the class is about dealing with people, because they know how to fix equipment. They've spent a career, probably a lot of them, going out and taking a piece of equipment that's broken and fix it. But when they got promoted to the role of manager, they have technicians that they need to take care of. They have technicians they need to motivate. And so I literally start from scratch with it's about a 5-hour, 6-hour uh, series of lessons that talk about the role of a supervisor. And a lot of times we think that's a fairly simple role, but a supervisor has to be a leader. He has to manage. He has to be a mentor. He has to motivate. He has to manage his time and his employees' time. He has to do some training. There's just all of these pieces that go together. So we kind of just work through that and talk a little bit about the definition. And then after that, we start getting into motivating technicians, and these are things that actually would apply to motivating anybody, because most companies think of motivation as primarily financial. And this just happened to be the module we finished this week. And one of the things I talked to them about was there are other things that they can do that will motivate people that don't necessarily spend any money. A good example is some extra time off. If the workload permits, give somebody an extra half a day and they're motivated. You've done something for them that had value, but it cost you nothing.
Right.
A pat on the back, especially a public pat on the back.
Yes.
You know, I'm a huge fan of if somebody did something good, especially if you like get a customer letter in commending a technician for what he's done. Not only do you respond back to the technician, great job, but you copy in your boss and the owner and anybody else in the company, sales manager, so that this person not only gets your praise, but gives them an opportunity to commend him as well.
Nice. Nice. That's really cool. So, how do you find all of these people? Are these people that you used to work with back when you were employed as a district manager? Or are you doing Facebook ads? Like, how are you getting a new pool of new managers?
One of the things that I tend to do is speak at industry events, and I that's why I have the blog. That's why I have the podcast. That's why I have a YouTube channel. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I do a little bit of direct mail, but even in my direct mail, I don't do selling. What I do is I just continually share information, and then when I have an opening for a new cohort starting, I'll mention that. But primarily, I believe in giving to people and get their attention that way, and then the end result is you get something really good in return. But the speaking is important, and then I'm partnered with the Business Technology Association, which is the trade association for copier dealers, and I speak for them and I do webinars for them, and then through them we have a co-branded program. So the students actually register on the BTA website, and it helps support the BTA as well as provide a source of candidates for me, because it's a relatively small niche. There's not, in an average size town there might be 10 copier dealers. So that means probably 10 to maybe 15 managers and supervisors. So it's a pretty small population and compared to the world as a whole.
Gotcha, gotcha. Wow, cool stuff. So you've got your businesses and you have all these different things and you're serving the world. Who exactly do you serve in your life? There's got to be like a group of people. So copier industry, obviously, but who else do you serve in your life?
Well, to start with, like I said, the copier industry, service managers. In the travel side of my business, I serve people that travel with challenges. My
Tell us
wife
about
travels
that.
with a wheelchair, and we started down that road because there were questions that I couldn't find answers to. And I'm pretty efficient at searching on Google and YouTube and finding answers. In the specific example, we knew that on NCL's private island, Harvest Key in Belize, that there were beach wheelchairs. I found an obscure reference to somebody in a post somewhere said they saw beach wheelchairs. So I thought, well, that should be easy to find out about. and there was not another word on this planet that was searchable
Oh
that
no.
talked about the beach wheelchairs, where you find them, what do they cost, any of that. And so that got me thinking about all of the things that when we travel that I research and look to find answers for. And I'm like, there's a lot of people that travel in that situation. A good example is in the last week, I've done an interview with Norwegian Cruise Lines, Princess Cruise Lines, and Carnival Cruise Lines, all focused on what's available for people with autism. How do they deal with food allergies? What help do they provide the blind? What help do they provide people that can't, that are hard of hearing or hearing challenged, as well as mobility issues? Trying to find out so that people that might face some kind of circumstance, they can find answers to help them decide if it's a good choice, and B, to know how to get the help they need, both ashore and on board.
Wow, that's really, really cool. So you did this to start with serving your wife,
Exactly.
and then you've ended up serving the common good because of your own personal interest in your family. Is anybody else in your family disabled?
No. Uh,
Gotcha.
I say that in the past, my grandmother had dementia, my mom had dementia, so we had to deal with that. And here's one of those things that I didn't know is that on Princess Cruise Lines and on Carnival, they have staff that are trained specifically to help recognize signs of dementia and provide, know what to do if they run across a person with dementia that's out wandering around on the ship by themselves.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's just one of those things I'd never thought about. They actually, the one cruise line gives them a lanyard that has like a special color on it, and it's a sign that there's a person there that may need some kind of emotional support or may have some non-visible challenges that they need to be aware of.
Oh, that is so clever. I love that. It's stepping it up and really giving great service to those people that go on those cruises. So how are the cruise lines doing? Are they surviving? What's the current status with them as of March 2021?
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting that Royal Caribbean and Celebrity announced that they're going to start cruising out of the Bahamas in June. And it was kind of a surprise because normally they would cruise out of the US. But because there's some challenges with getting guidance from the CDC, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, absolutely no political interest in it one way or the other, but the they couldn't get the authorization they needed to cruise in June from the US, but the Bahamas agreed that they could home port ships in the Bahamas. And so even for people from the US that want to go on a cruise, they can fly to the Bahamas and get on the ship and cruise. Now
Well,
there are,
that's great.
yeah, it is. It's a really good situation. There are still a lot of caveats and there's a lot of restrictions. Cruising for the next few months, probably the next year, will not look like cruising did a year ago.
Mhm.
Because there quite probably will be some mask rules on board. Have to be vaccinated. They'll probably be sailing at reduced occupancies. There's a lot of those kinds of things that will change in the cruise industry because of COVID. Some of the changes may be permanent, and I think there will be some positive changes that will be permanent.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's an industry that will survive. They were fortunate that they were pretty well positioned, though. I want to say the burn rate on cash was insane. Some of the cruise lines have gone through $1 billion in cash, maintaining empty ships and no revenue. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, it's been brutal for them,
Mm.
but the demand is huge right now. Everybody's talking about there's all of this pent up pressure. It's kind of like you got your thumb over the water hose and it's on high pressure. At some point in time, there's going to be a lot of water comes out.
Right? Yeah, I know that I too am burning to travel again. It's like we've been talking to our friends, like, where's the first place you're going to go? And me living in Monterey, California, a lot of our friends are like, Monterey, I'm coming to Monterey because we're within driving distance of them. But I'm like, well, I want to go see my family in Florida, and I can't wait to get my vaccination because that way I can feel at least a little bit more comfortable that I'm not bringing something bad to my grandmother's, right? And yeah, and then I want to get to Maui again, and I want to get to Canada, and just different, just travel. You're right. It's gonna, for those who can afford it, right? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have faced some serious economic hardships. But for those who can afford it, it's like, you know. Are you seeing? What else are you seeing? Because you're focusing mostly on cruise ships for your travel agencies. But what else is going on in the travel industry overall? What kind of dominoes are falling?
Well, we're starting to see a lot of in Mexico and a lot of the Caribbean islands, the all-inclusives are starting to open up. Again, they're right now, most of them have some fairly stringent guidelines about what you can do and social distancing. And and it's kind of funny because you ask about that. I have two stories I'll tell real quickly. First of all, I did a interview with a gentleman in an all-inclusive in Mexico. He had his cell phone and connected to the Wi-Fi in the hotel, and he walked around and took pictures, and we talked about all of the accessibility features. And what's brought that to mind was on the scooter, they have X's where people can't sit, so that they can keep people separated, and not be sitting directly across from somebody, and those kinds of things. So they have those kinds of protocols in place. The other, and I'm doing quite a few of these virtual tours, which is a lot of fun. I did one with the place. Have you been to the Madonna Inn?
Yes.
I did a virtual tour of the Madonna Inn, and the one thing that came out of that is I want to go back. I have been there, but never stayed there. And I thought, next year my anniversary is in April. I thought, that'd make a really good travel log because I could fly to LA, and we could catch the train from LA to San Luis Obispo, and then go from San Luis Obispo on up to San Francisco after we tour around that area. So I thought, well, that'd just make a really nice series of videos. And, like I said, the Madonna Inn is kind of a very unique property.
It is. For those who haven't been to the Madonna Inn, it is a very kitschy, theme-related hotel that's been in San Luis Obispo, California for a long time. I tend to stop by there for a little snack and potty break whenever I'm doing a road trip down from Monterey down to Los Angeles. It's a nice little stop. And then also too, Paso Robles is excellent wine. So be sure to tour their little wine country over there because there's some great wines. And who knows, maybe if you're en route to San Francisco, you can stop off in Monterey and see me on the coast. Because we
Oh,
have
we
the
might be
same,
able to do that.
yeah, we have similar weather to San Francisco. We're 2.5 hours by car south of San
Yeah.
Francisco. And we have about the same weather, but it's a lot quieter and it's actually prettier, less chaotic. So no offense to San Francisco, but Monterey is better. And it's
You
where
just lost a whole
Monterey,
city of viewers.
well, it's funny because Monterey is where a lot of San Franciscans come for their little weekend getaways. So it's like even the San Franciscans are like, Monterey.
It's interesting that you mentioned the wineries in up in Paso Robles. There's a winery up there. It's called the Straw Bale Winery, and the building is made out of compressed bales of straw coated with adobe. And we had a subscription to wines from there for quite a while until we realized that the nitrates in the wine were giving my wife migraines, and so she had to
Oh,
quit. But that was always, and for those that are where you can, and if you've never done a subscription to a winery and you like wine, that's pretty cool because what they do is, you get a little bit of every new bottling, and so you get to experience wines that you might not normally try, and you find some things you really like.
yeah, it is fun, isn't it, to be part of a club, a subscription plan? Yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. So one of the things that I love to ask people is, what is your why? The why is your whether it be your divine calling or just the thing that gets you out of bed every day. What is your why, Ken?
I think it's because I like to help people. I mean, I think that's what brings me more happiness. And in lots of areas. I mean, I have friends that I help. It's a good example, and it's nothing that was business related, but last summer, we were in the pandemic. We weren't going anywhere. I grew a really big garden, and I gave away 80% of the vegetables that came out of the garden. And I had some young friends that would come pick them up and take them to our friends that were in less fortunate economic circumstances. I mean, we're not rich or anything, but I'm just saying that we had friends that were struggling. And the one thing I could do is I could grow fresh vegetables and share them.
That's awesome. What did
And
you
I
what did you grow? What were you growing?
oh, I grew okra, black-eyed peas, green beans, tomatoes, peppers. I have a story about tomatoes I'll come back to. Corn. And then I feed the squirrels a lot of fruit.
Nice.
I have peach trees, plum trees, pear trees, cherry trees, bush cherries, and last year the only thing that I got to keep was figs.
Oh, really?
The
Nobody wanted the figs?
well, no, the squirrels don't want the figs. You know, now to the story about the tomatoes. My squirrels in this area, I live in an area that's wooded on pretty much all four sides of me. And there are a
And
lot of squirrels.
tell everybody where you are, because not everyone knows where you are.
Oh, thank you. I live in the middle of North Carolina. If you divided the state into four quadrants, I would be where the four quadrants go together, right in the middle, Asheboro, North Carolina.
Nice.
And I live in an area outside of town a little bit, and I'm surrounded by woods on all four sides. And these woods are full of squirrels. And my squirrels are brazen and shameless. We would drive home from going out somewhere. I also keep bees, so we come back maybe from doing some beekeeping. And there would be squirrels in the driveway sitting there holding tomatoes that weren't even ripe yet. And they would be eating them and staring at me. Like, what are you going to do about it? I literally got a little BB gun that shoots plastic BBs to defend my tomatoes, and that wasn't enough. So I went out and I now have a tomato area that is 10 feet deep, 60 feet wide. It's fenced and all the way over the top with chicken wire and bird netting so that the squirrels can't get in. And then before I did that, I did not get a ripe tomato. And then after I did that, I got lots of ripe tomatoes. Oh,
Oh,
you started on squirrels.
oh my gosh. Well, okay, so we have a few squirrels out here, but we do have a few squirrels, but not as much. Like we're right here on the coast, so we have ground squirrels and we have tree squirrels. But it's the deer. We have mule deer out here, and at least I think they're called mule deer. Mule deer. Anyway, they're wonderful, and they love to eat all the things in the backyard. So they like to eat my figs, but I'm totally cool with that because the backyard is meant for them anyway, and it's the season for everyone to start giving birth. So we'll start seeing little baby fawns out. But yeah, a lot of people who are gardeners are very upset because between the moles and the deer and the squirrels, yeah, their vegetables and fruits get picked and eaten. But hey, we're in a very agriculturally friendly place. Everything grows here so easily. There's more than enough.
Well, I said, if they just took a few and let me get some ripe ones, I wouldn't have been nearly as upset. But when they were eating everything before it even got ripe, where I didn't even have a fighting chance to get a tomato. And I started gardening because I have to have fresh tomatoes for BLTs. I can live all summer long on
Okay.
BLTs.
I love
And then
it. I love it.
the other thing I have to have, and I grow my own jalapenos, is I got to have pico de gallo. And you got to have ripe tomatoes for both of those. A green tomato, a green BLT is not the same.
I love it. You're here to help the world, but forget those squirrels, boy.
Well, my wife said she's actually going to plant some tomatoes outside the tomato cage for the squirrels. I am like, they'll just breed. They'll make more squirrels. But anyway, she said, well, maybe I'll keep them for me because I got the squirrels. I had a storm blew the corn down, and the squirrels got the tail end of my corn crop. So it's like,
Oh, you're right though. It is a challenge when you're a farmer, when you're a gardener, and you really want those foods for yourself. But my goodness, yeah. My grandmother lives in Flagler County, Florida, and she's in a very wooded area. And my favorite thing when I visit my grandma is we take the roasted peanuts in the shell, and
Uh-huh.
I'll go out there and I'll feed the squirrels, and it's just cute because it's she doesn't have a pet, but the squirrels are her pet. So, but she's also not gardening.
Well, if they would stay out of my garden, I love squirrels. In
I know.
Wisconsin, I will tell you, again, this kind of goes back to a little more of my aggravation with squirrels. In Wisconsin, we had 3 apple trees. We lived kind of almost in town. We had three, like I said, we lived in a little subdivision, and we had 3 apple trees. And we would watch the trees, and the first time we saw one bite in an apple, we knew it was time we had to pick all of the apples, whether they were ripe or not. You had to pick all of the apples, because if you didn't, as they got ripe, the squirrels would take one bite out of each of them. It's not like they would eat the whole apple. They would just take one bite out of each apple. And my wife she'd be losing her mind. So we started picking the apples a little green, but apples would ripen enough to make applesauce and things.
Oh man.
Um, we also have some other kind of rodent, and I'm not sure whether it's a raccoon or a possum that does this. But because my melons are now going to grow this year inside the tomato cake enclosure with the tomatoes. Because not last year, but year before last, we planted a big melon patch, and I had watermelons and cantaloupe and casabas and Crenshaws and some French anise melons, and
Wow, you're so
yeah,
good.
yes, and you would walk out and you'd look, and there'd be what looked like a ripe melon, so you'd wade your way over there to get it, and you'd pick it up, and something had gone in the stem, and all you had was a rind.
Oh no.
Again, needless to say, it made me a little cranky.
That was my melon, darn it. Oh, that's so funny. That is so, well, hey,
It's funny for you. It wasn't
I'm
so funny to
I'm
me.
sorry. I'm sorry, Ken. That's I know. What do you do, right? Uh, so, oh my gosh. So, what advice besides putting chicken wire over tomatoes? What advice do you have for our listeners in your wonderful wealth of wisdom?
Oh, it depends on what you want advice on. Uh,
Whatever you feel like sharing. It could be multiple points, whatever you're in the mood for.
okay, so let's talk about travel for a minute, because like I said, that is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I would say that right now it's a challenge, and I understand it's been a challenge. I expect right now for a while for things to be um, challenging. But the one thing I would encourage, and actually I'm going to back up and start with a whole new line of thought, is I will tell you that you'll have more fun with your travel if you don't plan everything to a T. Now, I'm not saying don't do your research. You want to know the gotchas and things to avoid. But one of the trips that I talk about the most was a trip that my wife and I and some friends made on a train in Mexico. And it involved sleeping in a train station, and the train station being cleaner than the hotel we'd stayed at the night before. It involved a cross-country journey for a bag of pop bottles that, when we finally cashed them in, were good for like $4. It just, but it was an adventure. It involved me missing the train and having my son and having to chase the train. And and I mean, it's a long story. I don't have time to tell it. But the thing is that trip was more memorable for us than you know so many other trips. The things that when things everything goes well, you don't necessarily remember. I can remember. I'll give you a little teaser of another trip that we took. Again, it was one that didn't go well. We took my sister-in-law and my niece, who were both in their mid-teens at the time, basically across country. We picked my niece up in Albuquerque. We started in Virginia with my sister-in-law. We drove all the way across. My wife and I had just gotten married. We were getting ready to go to Japan to live. We had an old beat-up car, and along the way, I sank a boat. And I mean, really sank my dad's fishing boat. Of course, he got even with me later because he sold me the boat. My dad was a believer in not getting mad, just getting even. Actually, he never settled for even. But we So tell me what the strangest thing you've ever cooked a meal on or in.
I'm not a cook, so all of it's strange to me.
Okay. Well, we had the girls and we were leaving out of Flagstaff, Arizona, headed over through Needles into LA. We're going to Disneyland. And we stopped in Flagstaff, and there's a pretty dry stretch after Flagstaff for a while before you get to any real towns. We stopped in Flagstaff. We got the charcoals because all along in Arizona we were seeing these fire pits, along the, in rest areas and stuff. So we thought we'd grill hamburgers. So we got hamburgers and buns and mustard and all the stuff. Charcoal, lighter. We get, half an hour, 45 minutes out of town, and the girls think they're going to die if they don't eat. We stop at the rest area, and there is no grill.
Mm,
It's just a fire pit.
mm.
So we were driving a 63 Ford Fairlane, and I off, scrubbed the hubcap with sand and water, and cooked hamburgers in the hubcap.
Wow, that's ingenuity.
Well, like I said, I tell our friends, if you travel with us, you have to expect the unexpected. It worked. Everything was fine. Nobody died.
And clearly your hubcap was not made of plastic like they are nowadays.
No, like I said, that's why I qualified the car, because this would have been in the late, well,
Like
probably 79 or 80.
1963 Fairlane. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. That's
yeah.
really, really cool. A hubcap. That's pretty awesome. I was thinking you were going to take sticks and like kind of like a marshmallows. You cook your hamburgers like marshmallow style.
Well, but it's hard to hold them on the stick. It's
Right.
like,
It'd be
I
more
mean, it
like
wasn't,
meatballs. It'd be meatballs
yeah,
on the stick. Yeah. That's funny.
but
That is so funny.
but both my sister-in-law and my niece remembered that for all of their life.
I love it. And then business wise, what advice do you have for anybody who's a small business?
So if you're in a small business, I would say, first of all, learn to use social media effectively. I think that is a big failure. And it was kind of interesting. I had one of the guests on my podcast. He was talking about targeted Facebook ads, and you can literally target a single block. So if find where your customers might be in fairly good numbers, and you can be very cost effective at targeting it. I would say to use social media too, in the sense of, I think that every business should have a YouTube channel. A YouTube channel is free; it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
When I started making videos for my travel videos, my first probably half a dozen, this is what I used to shoot them. I used free software to edit them. And there are things that, very specific categories, I would suggest. Let me put my charger back on there. There are specific categories of things I would suggest that you make videos about. So make videos that teach your customers.
Amen.
You want to teach them how to use your product, how to get their best service from you, but give to your customers in your videos. Don't make them commercials. They see commercials all the time anyway. So give them value.
Yes.
Uh, I think that a second category of videos that you should include is get video testimonials. It's interesting. In the last few podcasts, I've talked with a lot of people about the power of telling stories. And so get your customers to tell their story about doing business with you. And I don't care if you're a restaurant. Somebody comes in all the time as a regular customer, say, hey, listen, would you mind? I want to ask you a few questions about what you think about eating here. And get your cell phone out and record a little video and put it on your website.
Exactly.
Because if your customer tells a story about you, it's much more credible than if you tell the story about you. It also, stories form actually to help change people's minds a little bit. It alters the neural pathways and causes you to form a connection with the storyteller. So you want to be good at telling stories, and you want to be really good at getting your customers to tell their stories to your prospects, the people you want to do business with. I think that is probably a tool that most businesses don't do very well. Uh, the other thing I would encourage people to do is learn to be able to communicate and to speak. Uh, I took a course recently, and it really drove home to me the fact that too many people lose the opportunity to be on stages and talk to people. So again, no matter what your business is, you probably have groups of people that might be interested in having a speaker come in and talk about it. And again, these are not designed, and they should never be sales pitches. These are ways to go in and talk about what you do and how it helps people. And the end result is that if what you had resonated with the audience, you'll pick up customers, but you'll gain credibility and they'll remember you. And then again, these are opportunities that are free, that don't take much, but too many businesses let them slide by.
Mm, true. So true. Oh my gosh, you're so preaching to the choir. I teach so much of what you've just said in my marketing classes. Yes, yes. It's great to have somebody else that's not me say the same things that I say. That's great. Thank you. That is awesome. Well, honestly, Ken, you've been amazing. I truly, truly love hanging out with you. You are such a font of entertainment and squirrel wisdom and, and other things. Oh my gosh. How do people get a hold of you if they want to learn from you?
Okay, my website is 22nd Century Management. The easy way is 22ctymgmt.com. And you can find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. My for travel videos, if that interests you, Traveling with a Chair is my YouTube channel. It's pretty easy to remember. Traveling with a Chair.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Truly, Ken, you were amazing. Thank you for having me on your show. I love it. I love meeting new people, especially when we find we have so much in common. And when you make your trip out to California, let me know. I'll see you when you guys get out here. All righty, everybody. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Okay, thanks everybody.